Olá, boa tarde ou bom dia, dependendo de onde você estiver. Eu sou Mariana Bolfarini, vice-coordenadora da Cátedra de Estudos Irlandeses William Butler Yeats, da Faculdade de Filosofia, Letras e Ciências Humanas da Universidade de São Paulo. Estamos aqui virtualmente reunidos, o que é muito bom, porque nós todos estamos em diferentes lugares, em diferentes estados, diferentes países, para a primeira sessão da série Poesia ao Meio Dia deste ano de 2025. A série foi criada em 2021 pela coordenadora da cátedra, Laura Zarra, e por Susan Roy, que muitos de vocês já conhecem. Susan nasceu e cresceu no condado de Mayo, na Irlanda, estudou literatura na National University of Ireland e viveu no Brasil durante 4 anos, acompanhada de seu marido, o embaixador Sean Roy. Hoje ela nos traz poemas que adiantam as celebrações do dia de Santa Brígida, padroeira da Irlanda, que é comemorado no dia 1º de fevereiro, e os poemas podem ser baixados pelo site da cátedra. Aproveito para dedicar a sessão de hoje ao querido poeta norte-irlandês Michael Longley, que nos deixou recentemente no dia 22 deste mês. So, without further ado, I will give the floor to Priscilla, who is part of the chair team, along with Victor Pacheco. And Priscilla has already been doing a great job in conducting this series. So thank you, Priscilla, and thank you, Susan, for one more season of Poesia ao Meio Dia, and hope to see you all next month.
Thank you, Mariana. It's such a pleasure to share this session with you. Now, quickly switching to Portuguese. Eu venho fazer um convite, vou só colocar para a gente ver aqui essa imagem. Nós, da Cátedra da W.B. Yeats, gostaríamos de convidar a todos para o evento de celebração do St. Bridget's Day em São Paulo, com a poeta, pacifista e fabulista Nide Zacharia Ape. O evento acontecerá na segunda-feira, dia 3 de fevereiro, às 14 horas, no Ireland Corner, que fica no prédio da Alcane, na cidade universitária. So now, back to English. I want to invite our host, Susan Hoy, to join us on screen. Hello, Susan.
Hello,
Nice to see you again. It's such a pleasure to have you join us for our St. Bridget's Day celebration. So the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much. And I have to say it's lovely to be talking to you all there in different parts of Brazil. Sunny Brazil from a very cold Ireland here. We've had at this stage our fill of dark mornings, inclement weather and the drudgery of January. But hope is on the horizon. February is almost here, and it is tradition in Ireland to celebrate February the 1st, the feast of our great patroness, St. Bridget, and it's traditionally seen as the start of the spring season. The snowdrops are beginning to poke their heads through the soil, and we have this great festival that honors a woman, an Irish woman, our only female patron saint, and she's also a revered goddess, a woman who bestowed many gifts upon us. So at this time, when darkness and division and fear threaten to overwhelm us all over the world, we want to think about the values embodied by St. Bridget. She represents like a beacon of light and hope that might guide us towards a brighter, better future. So I'm going to start today with 2 poems that speak of this hope from 2 great giants of literature, W.B. Yeats and Seamus Heaney. The first poem that I'm going to read for you today is Yeats's very famous The Second Coming. The Second Coming by William Butler Yeats. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The centre cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of spiritus mundi troubles my sight. Somewhere in sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it, real shadows of the indignant desert birds, the darkness drops again. But now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hours come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. The same themes of hope and rebirth are taken up in Seamus Heaney's wonderful poem, The Cure of Troy. So I'm going to go straight on and read that one for you. The Cure of Troy by Seamus Heaney. Human beings suffer. They torture one another. They get hurt and get hard. No poem or play or song can fully right a wrong inflicted and endured. The innocent in jails beat on their bars together. A hunger striker's father stands in the graveyard dumb. The police widow in veils faints at the funeral home. History says, don't hope on this side of the grave. But then, once in a lifetime, the longed for tidal wave of justice can rise up and hope and history rhyme. So hope for a great sea change on the far side of revenge. Believe that a further shore is reachable from here. Believe in miracles and cures and healing wells. Call miracles self-healing, the utter self-revealing double take of feeling. If there's fire on the mountain or lightning and storm and a God speaks from the sky, that means someone is hearing the outcry and the birth cry of new life at its term. It means once in a lifetime that justice can rise up and hope and history rhyme. So, as I said, here, traditionally, as February comes in with the Feast of St. Bridget, we celebrate this rebirth, this renewal of life, of the earth, and it is a sign of hope. And Bridget has captured this, but, you know, who was she really? She was apparently born in the 5th century. And her father was a royal. Her father was a member of the royal family, but her mother was a slave. And she settled in Kildare. Legend has it that she was raised in the Druidic tradition, but was converted to Christianity by St. Patrick. And she went on to found a monastic order, lending her the advantage of having a distinct appeal to both Christians and to non-Christians. And she is said to have died on February the 1st, which was traditionally known in the pagan times as Imbolc, the first day of spring, meaning, and the word Imbolc means in the belly or first milk, which is referring again to new life in the belly of Mother Earth, and mother's milk, which sustains new life. Bridget had a great devotion to nature, and she had this devotion to regeneration and reverence for the land. And I suppose at this time, as the planet burns and fires are ravaging in California, and Ireland here is presently cleaning up after Storm Éowyn, which was one of the most powerful and widespread wind events to have hit Ireland since over 80 years. Even like in our home in County Fermanagh, we lived through 3 days of no water, no electricity, internet, phone signal, and that wasn't easy, especially with temperatures here as low as -1, -2. But despite all this darkness and bad weather and I suppose all the stuff that's going on in the world, when I looked out of the window of our house in the shade of the old sycamore trees, I could see the snowdrops poking their heads through the soil. And I thought about those snowdrops, probably planted many moons ago by some woman who lived on the family farm, who wanted to add a little bit of grace and beauty to the land. So I'm going to read for you today Paula Meehan's beautiful poem, Snowdrops. And in case you don't know, snowdrops are a little white flower which bloom in the colder times of the year, so in January, beginning of February. And they're actually native to continental Europe, but they've spread across the world as a symbol of warm weather and a season of rebirth to come. Snowdrops by Paula Meehan. So long trying to paint them, failing to paint their shadows on the concrete path. They are less a white than a bleaching out of green. If you go down on your knees and tilt their petals towards you, you look up under their petticoats into a hoard of gold, like secret sunlight. And there are 3 tiny striped green awnings that lend a kind of frantic, small-scale, festive air. It is the first day of February, and I nearly picked a bunch for you, my dying friend, but remembered in time how you prefer to leave them to wither back into the earth. How you tell me it strengthens the stalk. So again, you've got that theme there of the earth and the rebirth and people thinking about how to strengthen our ties to the earth, I think. And going back to Bridget, she was a woman of so many talents. She was also a goddess. Bridget was a fabled goddess, part of the Tuatha De Danann, which were the Gaelic gods. And I suppose she was known as a poet, a peacemaker, a healer, a midwife, and even a blacksmith. And like many goddesses, she was associated with the elements of fire and water, and she's closely associated with the sun, having the ability to hang her famous cloak off a sunbeam. Of course, there are many references to her with regards to snakes and fertility and cows and beer and milk even. But on the eve of Imbolc, Bridget visited the homes of the virtuous to bless them and to mark the arrival of spring. And at that time, it was traditional that families would leave food and drink out for her to sustain her on her journey and to create beds of rushes so that she could rest. And then in turn, Bridget would bless items of clothing or strips of fabric. And this is where the term the broth brija came from. And people would hang out these strips of fabric or these clothes in the morning dew. And these were thought to protect people and to protect the wearer from sickness and from evil. And when St. Bridget arrived to various houses, people would also weave the crosses from rushes, and then they would hang them in their houses until the next Imbolc. And to this day, people weave St. Bridget's crosses every year and hang them in their houses until the following year when the tradition is repeated. There's a lady called Orna Ross. She is an award-winning Irish novelist and poet, and she's got a huge interest in creativity. And she wrote this beautiful poem called Recalling Bridget. She believes that St. Bridget's story raises questions of gender, religion, morality and belief. And she called her poem Recalling Bridget because she remembers the wonderful things that Bridget was famous for in this poem. So I hope you like it. And it's called Recalling Bridget by Orna Ross. Queen of Queens, they called her in the old books, the Irish Mary. Never washed her hands nor her head in sight of a man, the book said. Never looked into a man's face. She was good with the poor, multiplied food, gave ale to lepers. Among birds, call her dove. Among trees, a vine, a sun among stars. Such was the sort of woman preferred as the takeover was made. Consecrated cask, throne for his glory, intercessor. Bridget said nothing to any of this, the reverence or the upbraidings. Her realm is the lacuna, silence, her scepter, her own way of life, its own witness. Out of desire, the lure of lust or the dust of great deeds, she was distorted to consort, mother, virgin, to victim or whore. I am not as womanly a woman as she. So I say, let us see. Let us say how she is the one. It is she who conceives, and she who does bear. She who knitted us in the womb, and who will cradle our tomb, fraying. Daily she offers her arms, clothes us in compassion, smiles as we wriggle for baubles. Yes, it is she who lifts you aloft soft, to whisper through your ears, to kiss through your eyes, to touch her cooling cheek to your cheek. So we're moving on now to Faughart, which is a place in County Louth, just north of Dublin, which is supposed to be the birthplace of St. Bridget. The Annals of Ulster record Bridget as having been born in 452. And the 5 Latin lives of St. Bridget contain lists of the miracles that she carried out as she dedicated her life to God and to helping the poor, the needy, and the oppressed. People of all ages and from all walks of life come to Faughart throughout the year to honour and to pray for Bridget, or to Bridget. However, on the 1st of February, or as it's known here in Ireland, Lá Éile Bríde, people come to Faughart in their multitudes. On this special day, the shrine at Faughart is thronged with pilgrims who come to invoke Bridget's blessing. Bridget, again, like with her big association with the springtime and with new life, she is known as the one who breathes life into the mouth of dead winter. So Faughart is a really special place. It was the site of 3 monasteries. The monastery of St. Bridget at Faughart, St. Monina at Killeavy. Monina was another very holy woman. And currently there is a monastery there. The Poor Clares have a monastery at Faughart. So these monasteries were all linked through time and place by the prayer and the lives led there, the lives of contemplative nuns, actually. And the following poem that I'm going to read you is a poem by Sister Anna Powell, who's she's a nun now living in New Zealand. And she's a poet who has published 4 volumes of poetry. And her poem about Faughart brings to mind the thousands of women who so long have tread these paths, have prayed these prayers, have dedicated their lives to those less well off than themselves, and to the oppressed and to the poor, and to the whole spirituality of life, I guess, here in Ireland. And the poem is called Of 1,000 Years by Anna Powell. Of 1,000 years within the triangle of 3 monasteries, walk the women of 1,000 years, steadily, singing the song line of creation and pleading for the world. Their feet are bare, where rock and earth and sedge and spirit beckon to the edge of things. They know what prayer is. They know how sorrow and joy enfold a day. They know the power of facing east. They know the intimacy and solitude of all spiritual beings in human bodies. Within the triangle of 3 monasteries walk the women of 1,000 years. Butterflies fold their wings. To gaze is to know what prayer is. And of course, within the church herself, Bridget was said to have been a very powerful bishop, the first ever woman bishop. Now, I suppose in the modern era, she's seen as Bridget the Saint, Bridget the Goddess, the Abbess or Druid. the exalted one. And actually, she transcends religion. Her legacy is more relevant than ever. And I suppose the influence of the strong, rebellious St. Bridget and her associations with fertility and creativity and female power, it gives the women of Ireland like a striking model. And the next poem, which I'm going to read for you, is a litany, which is a type of prayer often heard in places of worship. And it's usually led by a priest or a deacon. But it contains a series of petitions and to which people make fixed responses. And the poet, whose name is Celice Roach, a poet who was born in Dublin, she uses this litany to meditate, I guess, on the life and the witness of Bridget. So I'll read this poem for you. And it's basically just called St. Bridget's Day Litany. As a secret pulse through the warming dark, as a blackbird nestles in the shadowy hedge, as the gleaming eye of the evening star, as protection from the threefold death, as a sudden tribe of starlings rise, as wings lift off on an evening breeze, as a flame that comes upon dry grass, as winter peers through a web of trees, as the breath of poets upon the world, as the silence that follows a fox's cry, as clouds drift over the tender blue, as the old year departs without a sigh, as hag of winter, our lady of summer, as goddess, herald of hope and good cheer, as mistress of the reed and the sacred well, we salute St. Bridget each day of the year. So it's not just on St. Bridget's Day that we think of her, but it's a very, very special day here in Ireland, and the fact that it has become a holiday has given it even greater strength. It's an opportunity to celebrate Irish women from the past, from the present and the future around the world. And I guess it's also thinking about the importance of returning women to the historical present and future narrative. Because in Ireland, women were written a lot out of these, out of stories, out of history, out of the present. But actually now we're beginning to think about and look back and revise history and put women in there and give them their proper place. Michael Hartnett is the author of my next poem, and he wrote this wonderful poem lamenting the death of his amazing grandmother. But actually in the poem, his grandmother is symbolizing our culture and our traditions, and he is lamenting how easy it is to lose those and how important it is to hold on to them. And at the end of the poem, he uses a whole series of metaphors to conjure up an almost forgotten rural, idyllic Ireland, like the dances at the crossroads on summer evenings, the hustle and bustle of rambling houses with card games and music sessions and sean-nós singing, and people dancing sets and half sets. And I guess I think St. Bridget's Day, with its kind of pre-Christian and Christian resonances, provides us with this opportunity to re-embrace and celebrate our culture that goes back like thousands of years. And we have these, now with this holiday, we have these cultural touchstones which are familiar and joyful expressions of really who we are. So I'll read for you now Death of an Irish Woman by Michael Hartnett. Ignorant in the sense she ate monotonous food and thought the world was flat, and pagan in the sense she knew the things that moved at night were neither dogs nor cats, but pukas and dark-faced men, she nevertheless had a fierce pride, but sentenced in the end to eat thin, diminishing porridge in a stone-cold kitchen, she clenched her brittle hands around a world she could not understand. I loved her from the day she died. She was a summer dance at the crossroads. She was a card game where a nose was broken. She was a song that nobody sings. She was a house ransacked by soldiers. She was a language seldom spoken. She was a child's purse full of useless things. And again, as we come into this time of hope and spring and St. Bridget and festivity and reawakening, we also have to think about those less well off than us, those who are homeless, those who are in despair, in need. And the homelessness problem is a huge one here in Ireland at the moment. And although we have got a huge amount of homeless, we have creeping up on about 5,000 women who are actually without a home. And I saw a figure recently actually that said women account for about 37% of the people in Dublin who identify as homeless. So I think maybe at this time of celebrating strong women, we need to think about and shine a light on the often overlooked struggle faced by homeless women. This also brings to mind, of course, the women and all of those made homeless by war and conflict happening at the moment all over our world. We remember at this time how Bridget disrupted war by making clouds descend between opposing sides in battle to prevent bloodshed. And she's supposed to, with her nuns, have turned back the streams of war. She intervened in a battlefield and rendered warriors unable to fight. And there is a story which says that she bestowed sweet dreams upon the soldiers so that when they woke up without anger and they abandoned battle. So I guess now, images on the television, I've been looking at people returning, looking for their homes in the Middle East, and thinking about those homeless on the streets of Dublin and in the cities all over the world. And it reminded me of a beautiful poem by Pádraig Colum. My sister Claire used to recite this at our local feis. And it was originally written about the travelling women on the roads in Ireland. But I think it's just as important today as it was back when it was written. And it's called An Old Woman of the Roads. Oh, to have a little house, to own the hearth and stool and all, the heaped up sods upon the fire, the pile of turf against the wall. To have a clock with weights and chains and a pendulum swinging up and down, a dresser filled with shining delph, speckled and white and blue and brown. I could be busy all the day, clearing and sweeping hearth and floor, and fixing on their shelf again my white and blue and speckled store. I could be quiet there at night, beside the fire and by myself, sure of a bed and loath to leave the ticking clock and the shining delph. Ach, but I'm weary of mist and dark and roads where there's never a house nor bush, and I am tired of bog and road and the crying wind and the lonesome hush. And I am praying to God on high, and I am praying him night and day for a little house, a house of my own, out of the wind and rain's way. So my last poem today is a new work by Liz McSkean, and she's a writer and publisher who was born in Scotland, but she's come and lived in Ireland since 1981. Again, she's published, I think, 4 or 5 collections of poetry, but this poem appeared recently in the Irish Times, and it struck a chord with me. And I guess on this St. Bridget's Day, I'd like to honour my own mother, a true Irish woman, a woman who has overcome struggles, who has risen above adversity, and who has her entire lifetime shown ongoing compassion to those less fortunate than herself. And for me, she's a constant reminder of what can happen if you follow your dreams and believe in yourself. Unfortunately, at the moment, she's in hospital. She had a fall on Christmas Eve and underwent surgery on Christmas Day, but she's recovering well. This lovely poem ends with the line, "Don't forget to clean the fridge." And, you know, I know, Mum, you'll probably say something just like that to me with your last breath, but I'm hoping that won't be for a long time yet. So I hope you enjoy this lovely poem. It's called My Mother Wearing a Pencil Skirt in a Meadow, a work by Liz McSkean. It's a dark pencil skirt, and she's the first girl in Dublin to get one from Madame Nora's of O'Connell Street, with a crisp white blouse and the sheen of fine silk stockings, black painted stilettos tossed on the grass. She leans back, slender legs and curled up and crossed at the ankle, yet one hip tilted towards the camera, right arm stretched above her head, some kind of flower, a daisy, I guess, in the other hand, a half smile playing on her lips, that glint of mirth in her eyes, the cloud of blonde hair gleaming in the sun. A first date? But no, they've known each other longer than that. Still, far too smartly dressed to go walking in the country, though grand for a stroll in the park perhaps, tempted by a lush meadow to kick off her shoes, stretch out while my father steadies the camera to frame her reclined figure as she smiles. Those eyes, luminous with the same vital beam she fixes on me, not long before they decide to take her off the fluids. Which tells me that I mustn't forget to clean the fridge. The very sparkle you'd have once thought would be immortal. I hope you've enjoyed my selection of poems today. I have really enjoyed putting them together and reading them for you. I'm going to turn you back over now to Priscilla. We have a special piece of music for you today in honor of St. Bridget, and I hope you enjoy it.
Those brave lights burning still too dim to guide us from the deep. They settle there on winter graves to warm us while we sleep. So battered from our darkest night, we huddled small and still. We waited there until Bridget, hold our dreams in tender longing, beginning to blossom and bloom. Your gentle kiss renews us, we are garlands, becoming. Your radiant wisdom forged in iron to sink into the silt. Three sisters bound in fiercest love, a gentle temple built. You beat your breast when he was lost. They gathered you within. They nurtured you until Bridget, hold our dreams in tender longing, beginning to blossom and bloom. Your gentle kiss renews us, we are